Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe. Right, this is the big one. The debate about RAW files versus JPEG. The argument between using the unblemished data straight from your camera's sensor or the compressed adjusted file from your camera's image processor. I want to talk about the pros and cons of using the oversized and overhyped RAW or the much maligned JPEG. So let's talk turkey and kind of figure out, which one is best, RAW or JPEG. First up, RAW. RAW files are the unprocessed data straight from your camera's sensor with no white balance, no sharpening, no picture style, and most importantly, no compression added at all. You must remember that with RAW files, because of this, because it is the raw data that's coming off the sensor, they have to be post-processed. You can't just take a RAW file and then print it out or display it. It will look flat, it will look boring, it won't look sharp. And some people kind of think that the RAW file is a bit like they call it like a digital negative, comparing it to the old days of film. But it's not really, because when you used to buy film, whether it be positive or negative film, slide film or kind of print film or anything like that, the different films had different looks that were kind of baked into them. So you knew that if you had a ProView or a Kodachrome or a Fujichrome or something like that, it'd give you a certain look and a certain amount of saturation, sharpness, etc. like that. And RAW doesn't do that. And you may even find when you start shooting RAW, you'll be disappointed with the look of your photographs because not everybody, lots of people on the internet go, RAW's a thing, you must shoot in RAW. It's so important. It's the ultimate quality with RAW. And you take the photos, you look at them on your laptop and you go, wait a minute, that doesn't look very nice. And in fact, you'll probably look at the pictures on the back of your camera when you've taken them and go, wow, that looks amazing. You look them on your laptop when you get home, you're like, why is it so flat? Where's all the contrast gone? And that's because the RAW file itself has a JPEG that the camera embeds in it for preview purposes for the back of your camera. And onto that JPEG, the camera will have applied things like white balance and sharpening and a picture style and stuff like that. The other thing about RAW files is they are considerably bigger than JPEGs. They take longer to process in your camera. They take longer to process on your laptop or your PC. They slow your camera down. So why on earth would you want to use RAW files? And the answer is the data that's contained with them. It really can be quite extraordinary. Because no compression has been applied to the RAW files, as long as you choose to use uncompressed RAW files, I know some cameras have options to compress, but you don't want to do that. There's an incredible amount of data that we can't always see when we look at the photos on our laptop screens, mainly in the shadows and the highlights as well. And you can then pull out that detail in post-processing in Photoshop, Lightroom, Aperture, etc. to enhance or improve or save your photograph if there was a problem with it. For example, if your photo was overexposed or underexposed, or there was too large of a dynamic range for you to capture, chances are that if you shoot in RAW, you'll be able to recover those details. You'll be able to see, if something's silhouetted on a nice landscape picture, you'll be able to bring out those shadows and get the details back in there. And it won't really affect image quality that badly. White balance is another area where RAW files really excel, because when your camera captures a RAW file, it doesn't apply any white balance to it at all. So again, because of the lack of compression in the RAW file format, you can apply any white balance you want to in post-processing, and it won't affect the quality of the final image. So there we go. That's the argument for RAW. It's pure, uncompressed data from your camera's sensor, and it gives you the most elbow room for adjustments in post-processing. Now, sure, RAW files are big and you have to spend time working on them, but if you want ultimate quality, then RAW could be for you. So next up is JPEG, the image format that really transformed the world. Almost every image you see on the web is a JPEG, and without them we couldn't have services like Flickr, 500px, or photo sharing on Facebook and Twitter, because the JPEG file format makes photographs in terms of their file size much, much, much smaller. When your camera is set to capture images in the JPEG format, it looks at the settings you've chosen, say your white balance, your picture style, sharpening, contrast, all that sort of stuff, and it applies them to that raw data that's come off the sensor. And then and the JPEG algorithm then compresses it and then saves it to your camera card, and it creates files that are a lot smaller and a lot easier to handle. You'll find that if you're shooting JPEG, generally your camera will operate a little bit faster than when you use them. Things like your buffer will carry on for longer when you're taking lots of pictures in a row very, very fast. And JPEGs often can be pretty much, under good lighting conditions, perfect out of the camera. And you might only need to add sort of minor tweaks in post-processing. JPEGs generally tend to look sharper, they have more contrast and saturation, and they're generally punchier than their raw equivalents if you were to compare a raw file with the JPEG with no post-processing applied to it. Because and the reason for that is because all the post-processing kind of thing has been done by your camera when it's saved it to your SD card or your compact flash card. With JPEG files, you can fit more photos onto your camera's memory card. You can fit more onto your computer's hard drive. It's the file format that you'll upload to the web, share on Flickr, share on Facebook, share on 500px. But there's a downside to JPEGs, and that's the very compression that makes them such a useful file format in the first place. Because your white balance, sharpness, and style settings are baked into the image, then the JPEG algorithm kind of squashes the picture down, and basically it's throwing data away. It kind of looks at, say, a blue sky and says, well, that pixel's blue, that pixel's blue. Right, we don't need to have data for both of those. Let's throw one of those away. And because it's doing this, and you're losing a lot of that information, you can't recover as much in post-processing. You can't recover as much detail in the highlights and the shadows. If you've got the white balance wrong at point of capture, say you had set your camera to, I don't know, an indoor white balance, fluorescent tube, a tungsten white balance, you went out and shot outside and it was all the wrong hue, you can correct JPEGs, but it's at the detriment of image quality in a way that you don't lose that image quality with a raw file. And also, because of the fact that there's been some compression applied to the JPEG as well, when you open it up and then save it again, you get things like artifacts can start to creep in, which are those little kind of fun, well, they're not really fun, those little odd speckles you can see in photographs. It tends to increase noise as well. At heart, the problem with JPEGs is that I think they're basically recording data with 8 bits of depth. Now, I won't go into all that at the moment, but your raw files generally are at 12 and 14 and 10 bits of depth of colour information as well. So there just isn't the information there, which just means you lose all that elbow room when it comes to post-processing. So the question then is, what format should you shoot in? And for me, anyway, the answer is it depends on what type of photography you're doing at the time. And I think the smart photographer switches between the two depending on the situation you're in. Because if you're shooting an event where you'll be taking lots of photos in good light, say you're going to a sports, like, I don't know, a football match or something like that, or even a wedding where you're taking hundreds and hundreds of photographs, family gathering or something like that, then the speed that JPEGs really is a no-brainer, because if you compare a well-processed and shot JPEG with a well-processed and shot RAW file on a computer screen, you'd be hard pushed to see the difference if they were taken in good lighting conditions. Now, if one of them was incredibly underexposed, if both of them were incredibly underexposed, and you try to recover that detail, then yeah, the RAW file is going to look better. But for 99 times out of 100, you're not really going to be able to tell the difference if they were taken under good lighting conditions. And the time that you would save by not having to post-process 1,000, say you're doing a wedding and you took 1,000 images and they were JPEGs, the fact that you would only have to do minor tweaks to them, if anything at all, would mean you would save so much time, and you wouldn't really gain the quality by shooting in RAW. However, maybe if you're in a situation where you're not taking that many photos, or say you're on a photo walk, or in a tricky lighting situation, or if quality is of the highest necessity, say you're doing a studio shoot or something like that for a magazine or something, then the power of RAW will be what you want, because you'll want to spend all that time on post-processing and make sure the files are perfect, because, you'll be charging your client for that. Or if you're out on a photo walk, like what I do, sort of doing an amateur sort of thing, you haven't taken that many photos in the first place, so it's not that much of a hassle to do the processing of the RAW. Let's say you're doing a wedding going through group shots. You might shoot JPEG because it's fast and it'll save you loads of time in post. But say then the lighting gets tricky and you want to make sure you get all the details in the bride's dress, I said, then, you might want to switch to RAW. Say you're at a family barbecue, you shoot JPEGs of the kids running around and everybody having fun, but maybe there's some older relatives there and you want to take some really nice portraits of them for posterity, then you might switch to RAW and do it that way. I think if you're new to photography and new to your DSLR, then I think you should shoot JPEGs for a long time. I don't know, several months, I would say, until you really get your brain around post-processing. Otherwise, you'll find that the photos you take on your DSLR, even though you're taking them in RAW, you look at them on your laptop and you think, wait a minute, my old compact camera, my phone could take better looking photos than that. But when you get head around post-processing, say Lightroom or Aperture or Photoshop or Picasso, you know how to get that punch into your photos that you want, then, take over with RAW. So there we go, the debate between RAW and JPEG. There is no winner. They're file formats that in the modern digital age serve different purposes, I think, for different photographic situations. Full-size, high-quality JPEGs for speed and ultimate convenience, and RAW for ultimate quality. Use the one that works best for the photography situation you're in at the time. So there we go. That's enough from me. My name is Rob from robandonphoto.com. If you like the videos, please like, please subscribe, please put some comments down below, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.